With that, I'll yield to the ranking member for his questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the most important thing you said is the acquisition reform, the SPEED Act that we're doing gives us a real chance to make substantial changes. We want to get that right. So I think between now and when we get to that happy day, and hopefully October, November, when we pass the defense bill, making sure that we're working closely together and getting that as close to right as possible is going to be crucial. Just one follow-up on the foreign partner thing, I think it's crucial. To get to the capacity that we need, we're going to need foreign partners. So two questions about that. How do you balance that versus some of the domestic content demands? You know, we want to obviously maintain our own industry, but we're not going to get there on our own. So we need the partners. And then second, with the tariffs that have been done in a variety of different places, is the people putting the tariffs in place talking to you guys and saying, okay, how does this impact, you know, where we need to get certain key defense articles? Is the tariff policy contemplating our defense needs in that way? So there's two things there.
Yes, sir. First question. I think the way I've thought about approaching this is how do we get, as much as possible, a holistic understanding of the demand across all of our allies and partners. So we've got clear understanding of what our need base is, and then we've got an FMS system that we're looking to reform under direction of the White House to modernize how we track.
Sorry, but I'm more focused not sort of on how we use them, but how we build them. And how we can say, you know, okay, we can't, well, you're talking about shipbuilding or munitions, maybe we've got a partner, maybe Norway can build it. Maybe Australia is beginning to build Gimlers, for instance, the AUKUS deal, you know. But at the same time, we have a lot of domestic demand and, you know, we have a lot of demand for being able to make it in America. That's what I'm interested in, sort of on the development side.
Sure. And I think actually understanding the demand helps on the development side and the supply side to say that we understand that holistic supply. Now let's look at what are the constraints that we face domestically to provide an industrial base that can produce at the capacity that we need, and then how do we look at extending that in ways that are value added. That's why I think it's a complex equation, but we can't be bogged down by thinking it through, as the Pentagon is often guilty of. And so I think on the munitions side, we're exploring, and hopefully this will be part of my theme throughout the discussion today, is the mission that we have is delivering capability. Acquisition reform is an enabler of us to do that more quickly. And so we are taking munitions as that pathfinder to say, let's charge forward fast, ramp quickly, and then think through how do we leverage these enablers, whether it's acquisition reform and streamlining the regulatory burden we place on industry, or exploring the co-production partnership. Because I think you'll, at least in my experience, we'll move more quickly if we're driven by this outcome-based approach to how we're thinking through both acquisition reform and co-production opportunity. So getting that holistic demand picture, I think, sort of puts out a marker for us to pursue. With respect to the tariff policy, we are certainly actively monitoring the impacts of that to defense production. I'll confess I don't have chapter and verse on how those regulatory
There's a lot going on, and it changes rapidly.
Yes,
so
sir.
I can understand that. Yeah.
But certainly we're my team is very attuned to how we can mitigate any impact that might have on our ability to acquire quickly.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be crucial to build up our capacity collectively as an alliance. When you look at all of the needs we have, drones, missiles, ships, we're not going to be able to do it all on our own. So we really want to emphasize those partnerships. Last question. So one of the things that really struck me, the DIU and the efforts at R&D have been really kind of successful in the sense that if you're an innovative company and you've got a good idea, you've got a decent shot of getting a contract to do R&D and develop a new idea in any of 1,000 different places. Where we fall off is if that idea bears fruit and we decide we want it, the gap, the valley of death we talk about between R&D and procurement. Is solving that problem really as simple as just giving more flexible money to the Pentagon to make the quick decision and say, instead of having to change the color of money from R&D to procurement and going through a 2-3-year process, we'll just say, hey, if you like that, we're going to give you $10 billion, go buy it. Or are there other things that we need to change so that we can more quickly get to that point than when we develop a technology, when we develop a capability, and we decide, gosh, I love that, I want 1,000 of them, you can just go do it. How do we make that move more quickly?
I'll start and ask for any input from my colleagues. I think that certainly the flexibility of funding is helpful. I think I'm not an entrepreneur, but I've talked to enough to know that your run rate and your ability to sustain funding to keep a company alive on a 2-year cycle is challenging. And so ensuring that we have the flexibility to make money available to scale those technologies is critical. But I also think it goes back to a lot of the things that we're thinking through in acquisition reform. How are we placing burdens on companies? I think there's a lot of flexibility that maybe we haven't fully taken advantage of with other transaction authorities and trying to provide relief to some of the cost accounting standards to younger non-traditional companies. So that's another opportunity for exploration, because certainly we don't want to miss an opportunity to take advantage of a promising technology because a regulation or a bureaucratic process got in the way.
Okay.
Ranking Member Smith, the Navy's had good success with DIU partnering on some unmanned systems, unmanned surface vessels, unmanned underwater vehicles, where DIU was able to put out an RFI in January 2024. November 2024, the performer demonstrated success, and by May of 25, we were able to award a production OT of about $400 million for a significant number of small USVs. Similar on the UUV front, we had a commercial UUV that DIU was able to test, and it made more sense to go with a FAR-based contract into production, which we've done. So I think DIU is a powerful tool, and we'll work kind of through each use case of what makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you very much. I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.